great to be here in IIFT and joining this IMC conference. It's very interesting how AI has also evolved over the last 70 years. Because when we look at AI, there was a point of time when it was not really that exciting, and people who would be working on AI, they used to be snubbed upon. I'm talking about the 1980s. And then subsequently, today, post-2010, there has been such a hype, such a hoopla surrounding AI can do everything. And naturally, AI is also percolating into many spheres. We as academicians are also teaching courses in AI. Like for me, I teach a lot of courses which is on data science and machine learning. But also, we as a researcher, we are also facing this challenge of what to handle, how to handle AI. So I'll give perspective of two things in this. One is as an individual researcher, how my journey used to be and what I face as a challenge in this current journey. When I did my FPM from XLRI in those days, the first thing that we used to start with was undertaking a literature review. And we used to say that, okay, like when I used to supervise my scholars, I passed on that you should start with a literature review. And if you look at the last couple of decades of how things started, you know, there has been so many tools which would go into publishing a lot of bibliometric study. So people will extract the abstract, the keywords from Scopus, and then do the bibliometrics on that, and then produce a paper on that. And that would give insights, supposed, on which direction should a person take in terms of grounding their research, in terms of moving towards research questions, and so on. Now, with generative AI coming in, what has happened is, there is absolutely no need for that bibliometrics in most of the cases, because I would be able to extract that data from Scopus in another 2-3 minutes, feed that data into generative AI platforms and get a report out of it in another 5 to 10 minutes, and that would complete the most of the functional parts of the manuscript. So the value that generative AI has done is what I could do potentially within, months of work has now been reduced if I just look at a superficial way of understanding the literature. So literature review is something that is going to go out of favor. At least the bibliometrics have gone out of favor in most of the top journals where I serve as an editor, as an associate editor in different roles. But what is changing is, it has also speeded up the time with which we can assimilate the literature. Earlier, reading a research paper would take a lot of time. Searching for the appropriate literature used to be a much more time-consuming thing. With this journey has actually been shortened. With generative AI, that is the only value that I see directly in a research. But if we start using generative AI for content creation, there are two aspects of it. One aspect is everybody talks about hallucination. That is one very popular aspect of it. The other part is the reproducibility of the research. When you're using generative AI for any kind of analysis, I can throw in a data, I have collected data on a survey, I can throw in that data, it will give me the path model also. But the problem is the replicability of the research. We do not know the assumptions under which that path model is done. And if there are 3 people who are trying to do the same thing with the same data, the path model indices are likely to be different. And that is where basically the next problem comes, that if we are saying that we can use generative artificial intelligence for research, what are the limitations we should be cognizant about? The second thing is also when we are using an ML model for doing research, and this is typically the kind of papers I see getting published in a lot of journals. So if I have a dependent variable saying that this is something that I want to predict using a simple model like regression, I know that the regression equations and the different factors and all that are derived have a certain degree of explainability. But when I look at using ML models, first of all, the prediction of the dependent variable may change depending on whether I use, say, a neural network model or a random forest model or a decision tree model. The prediction that I make may also change. The second thing is, within this ML model, if I change the hyperparameters of the ML model, then also the prediction also changes. So I don't have reliability of the outcome. A lot of times, in the traditional way that we look at research, and especially in management when we are talking about explainable and causal research. So there I see that there is a lot of challenges and practices which are coming in terms of how AI is going to be used in research. I don't know whether I'm overshooting my time. Okay. The third thing that I also see is a big problem is that as an editor, what happens is we get a lot of papers which are submitted in a journal. Like today, I handle around some 15 journals before I came here. Now, a lot of times what is happening is a lot content of the journal is also created by generative AI. Now, when the paper is submitted and the editors start going through it, they have no idea that how much of the content is AI generated. That report typically comes from Web of Science after a year. And then what happens is by that time, if the paper is published, then it will be retracted. If by that time the paper has already gone through the review process and has got accepted, and the reviewers could not understand it, or the editors could not understand it, after 1.5 years, 2 years, the paper may get retracted purely because a large part of the content has been recognized that it has been created by AI. That being said, it is not bad to use AI because we are using different types of AI at different points of time. Whether it is Grammarly, we are using it to correct grammar, that is also use of AI. But the way that we are using AI needs to be a little different. There are ethical guidelines which dictate how we can use AI for our research, how we can use it for different, kind of analyzing the data, how we can use it for preparation of manuscript. We have to just stay with it.